Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Now she's the one that.
Welcome to. Excuse me, you guys.
So we'll see you. Bye. Bye.
Welcome to the gravesite of what we think and we hope is Jerry Daniels. How many of you know anything or have been following the story for the last few years? A couple of you. Okay, that's good. Jerry Daniels was probably the youngest smoke jumper ever to jump out of Missoula, Montana. He went to school here, went to the university here, had a couple of good years as a jumper, and then in 1960 was quietly approached by the Central Intelligence Agency to find out whether or not he wanted to work overseas in some unnamed destination. He was not the only person who was approached. In fact, this is another one of them. And he decided, well, yeah, sure. He was young, single, and a good adventure sounded like a good deal to him. So off he went. Didn't know exactly where he was going, but he ended up in Thailand. And in 1960, 1961 was the very, very beginning of the Vietnam War for the U.S. He ended up as what's called a kicker, who works at the back end of an airplane. He worked for Air America, pushing rice and supplies to Hmong troops that were on the ground in Laos. So he was working in Thailand for a couple of years and decided he liked it. He liked Southeast Asia. He liked what he heard about Laos, and so he stayed on and eventually went to junior officer training back in Virginia, and ended up working on the ground in Laos with the Hmong for almost 20 years. So in the meantime, he came back and forth to Missoula, and that's when he went through the university because he needed to have a university degree in order to continue on in his profession. And he became the very trusted advisor to General Vang Pao, who was the Hmong general who led the U.S.-supported troops, Hmong troops in Laos. So he achieved a very high position while he was working in Southeast Asia. 1975 came, and April 30th, 1975, most of us, if not all of us, were old enough to watch the fall of Saigon and the helicopter evacuation out of Saigon to the U.S. Ships that were out in the ocean. 2 weeks later, because Laos was a secret war, 2 weeks later, Jerry was the only one left in upcountry Laos. And I forgot all the rest of my notes, but I did make a little map. So North Vietnam, South Vietnam, and Laos is the landlocked country just north and east of Thailand. So he was way up here in a very isolated area. And because the Hmong troops had worked on behalf of and been supported by the U.S. government for all of those years, Jerry knew them very, very well, knew who the players were, and he orchestrated all by himself, basically. He was the last American in the area. He orchestrated an air evacuation of the top military officers and their families, 2,500 more or less, over the course of 3 or 4 days, as they were being surrounded by the communist Pathet Lao, which were moving in on that air base. And so 2,500 got out to Thailand. That was the beginning of the Hmong refugee program for those that eventually came to the U.S. Others went to France, to Australia, New Zealand, but most of them obviously came here. The very early Hmong community that was here in Missoula were people hand-picked by Jerry. They were his buddies, or people he wanted to make sure had a good start in life in the U.S. And so that early community, people say, why Missoula, Montana? Well, because of Jerry Daniels, who sent them here. His mother was very much involved in the refugee resettlement program and took so many of them personally under her wings to help them with language and health and getting the school, the kids in school. And there's a lot that goes into refugee resettlement. So she was very, very instrumental in that. Meanwhile, 1975 to 1982, Jerry is still in Thailand. He feels very strongly committed to the Hmong and the U.S. program in Southeast Asia. And so he is working with the refugee resettlement program from the refugee camp side. He is one of the very, very few people who was there during all the war years, and again, knows who the players are, knows the battles, can ask questions to sort out who is a bona fide refugee qualified to come to the U.S. and who might be a pretender. So he was doing that for many years, up until 1982, when he was getting ready to retire and come back to Missoula. He had several different options that he was interested in. He did want to work with the hand-picked Hmong that he had sent here. They were going to set up some different businesses possibly. And in the spring of that year, a body was found in his apartment in Bangkok, Thailand. The U.S. government said yes, that was Jerry, although the autopsy that was done, he was sent through the Thai police department. Autopsy was done. They did confirm on paper that was the body of Jerry Daniels, and they asked the family, and this is Jerry's brother Kent Daniels. They asked the family, is it okay if we cremate him in Thailand and we'll just send you the ashes? And the family said, no, we want the body back. A body was sent back. There was no visual confirmation on what body it actually was. It was so deformed at the time that the body was found in the apartment. The family said, no, we want him back here. And so everybody was told, okay, the U.S. government will send him back, but his casket is never, ever to be opened under any circumstances. And that is what brought us to today. The casket went into the ground here with all of the autopsy reports were completely wiped clean, redacted, information, people that were interviewed about what happened during those last few days, where was he, who was he talking to, redacted, redacted, redacted. So it was very sketchy, the circumstances under which this body was found, and that everybody was told under no circumstances could the casket be opened, only made the situation worse. The Hmong were devastated. According to their culture, you have to see the person's face. You have to be able to confirm. So for the next 30 years or so, there have been sightings of Jerry Daniels in Des Moines, Iowa, in Thailand, all over the world, because the Hmong community will not believe that he is in that casket unless there is absolute confirmation of that. I worked in refugee resettlement since 1976, the beginning of 1976, because I worked only with Hmong. Eventually I heard about this mysterious Jerry Daniels who worked up in the hills of Laos and then worked in the refugee camps and then somehow died. And I got interested in that and ended up writing a book. It was supposed to be an article, like a 10-page thing. Well, 12 years later, it ended up as a book. And so the whole question of what happened to Jerry, because this is about his life and also about his Hmong funeral. He is the only non-Hmong person to be honored with a traditional 3-day Hmong funeral ceremony here. That was very hard for the Hmong community because they could not confirm it was him, and yet they wanted to do this traditional funeral for him. So there was a lot that went into that, the whole funeral. Anyway, I got interested, and so that is how this book got started, and that's sort of got the ball rolling. I got in contact with Jerry's brother, and eventually the rest of the family, the other brothers, the nephews, their wives. It just went on and on. I thought I was making one trip to Missoula, Montana. I live in Southern California, and came up here and have been back and forth for the last 18 years ever since. It's a great place. So, last year, after 3 years of very quiet, very, very quiet maneuvering, Kent and I and a couple of other people had been working very quietly with the local sheriff's department and the state medical examiner and a variety of people, and there was turnover in all of these offices. So it was 3 years in the making. All of us were very aware that the State Department had said, the U.S. government had said, absolutely do not open the casket under any circumstances, which is why we kept it very low key. But 11 months ago, the casket was exhumed. Well, it does not absolutely confirm yet, but it does at least eliminate some things. There is a body in there. It does appear, size-wise, to be Jerry. There was no physical trauma to the body as far as strangulation, bullets to the head, nothing like that. But it has been just too many years to know exactly how he did die. The U.S. Embassy said it was due to a leak in the gas water heater in his bathroom, but there are many problems with that. And confirmation can't be made one way or the other as far as the gas water heater goes. But at least there was a body in there. There was a cheek swab taken from Kent. It's been 11 months. We don't have the DNA results back yet. So probably Jerry is here. Do we know how he actually died? No, there's still a lot of very suspicious circumstances around that. But it appears that it is probably him. We are still waiting for the DNA, so maybe you'll come back next year and find out more about it. Kent would like to share some personal stories with you at this point.
First of all, I'd like to tell you that this is Mr. Tumua. He was here for the exhumation, representing the Hmong people, and has been kind enough to come out and say hi today. And he worked with Jerry for many years, I believe.
Speak a little bit.
Well, he'd like to say a little bit if you can hear him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My name is Chu Moore. I live in Missoula here. I came in here on March 17, 1976. I live here until now because Montana here is the nice country, just like Laos, have a mountain. I like that. Way back in the Laos, we worked with jury. I was the commander for airstrike, for the U.S. airstrike during the Laos, and worked very close with Jerry Daniel. So when he disappeared, we very miss him. But my personal, I don't think he died. It's political for my personal, but no evidence. So we love this country. We are very happy that we have a chance come into this country for our kids have a better education. So that's we very happy. So Vietnam War is political war, like you understand. That's all I can say. So I thank you for the United States, bring the Asian people, especially the Hmong people, fight with side by side with the United States, because the I would say the CIA agent at the beginning is a secret. They're not open for the public, for everybody know, because the Hmong people up on the mountain, we fight so hard like anybody else. So that's why the CIA come in direct to the Hmong people. And we try to stop the Ho Chi Minh Trail from North Vietnam to South Vietnam to reduce activity fighting on South Vietnam. So that's why the Hmong people work so hard side by side with the United States. So nice to see you guys, and I still here, I still living here forever. So thank you so much. But I don't believe that Jerry died for myself, because I talked to him before he left here. So thank you. That's all I can say.
Jerry always said that the Hmong people were like our Native Americans. They just wanted to be free and just leave me alone. These guys want to just live in the hills and just be free, and here comes the communists, and so that's why they sided with our U.S. forces. And then you know how the U.S. can do to their allies. Sorry, but that's the way I feel about it. Another thing that Jerry was involved in, this was in about 61. This is called Operation Cold Feet. And sometime in 60, they discovered this camp here, which was a Russian camp. It's in the Arctic. And they were being served by a regular runway, and the ice started to buckle. So they said, get out. So they got out and they left all their intel. Supposedly the intel was they were keeping track of our submarines, listening like we listened to theirs, and so that they could tell what kind of a submarine, how deep, whatever they're doing, the speed and all that. They jumped these two guys in. They were Navy intelligence people to get whatever intelligence they could find. Only they couldn't pick them up except with this Operation Skyhook. It was Fulton's Skyhook. Fulton developed this particular unit. There's a V in front of it. You say it is, Mike? B-17?
That's the B-17.
B-17. It's got a big V out here. This guy's getting ready to send up a balloon. There's a guy that's hanging on the balloon. They come in at 500 feet. And it comes into the V. They lock it, turn it, and it stretches. It's brand new nylon, so it stretches out, lays right along the belly of the plane, and they reel him in. Jerry was a winch man that reeled the guy in. And it hasn't been used that many times. It was in, I believe, the Green Berets that John Wayne was in, but it was a movie. So I think I've been told there's only been 3 or 4 actual human beings reeled in on it. it was perfected in Marana, Arizona, which was a CIA base, and they were going to use this particular setup to pick up astronauts after in the first they were always dropped in the water. They were going to do this, so they decided, well, let's show these astronauts what this looks like. And the guys that were developing it, I guess, were you there when the wind was blowing? Anyway, the Fed said, show these guys how good it works. Well, the wind was blowing. It wasn't that good a deal. They snapped it up, picked it up, and they swung back and forth, slammed into a bleacher or two, and the astronauts decided that wasn't the way to get picked out of the ocean. But they did get it. The weather turned ugly on them, super foggy. And of course, in '61, they didn't have our GPSs and all that kind of stuff. And so they didn't know where they were, so they took up to get a shot on the sun. And they were something like 8 miles away from Russia. Well, that's not the place to be, so they dived back down. But it took them a couple of days to find them after they dropped them in there, and they finally did reel them up. And that's called Operation Cold Feet. There's a book that was written in '96 or '98 about, and it's called Operation Cold Feet, and it has this. My wife and I were fortunate enough to go back to the CIA when they gave Jerry posthumously a medal for this operation. These other guys that are down here, there's pilots, there's other guy, this guy that's in the nose of the plane, his name is Randolph Scott. Really, it's Toby, we call him Toby Scott. And he lives up by Ovando now. So that's one of the guys that's still around. Michael was involved in, that sounds funny. Mike was involved in this also, but he was not on this particular adventure. So that was, it's just really something that, so he would have been 20 years old when he did this deal here, and I didn't know about it, and he'd stop by at the house. And when I got the medal, it was my birthday, it turned out, 1961, and I had no idea where he was or what he was doing. It was another Cold War CIA adventure. And I think that was, to me, that's really kind of neat.
Yeah.
Tough part that he had to put up with in Laos. There's a lot of stories there, too. And a lot of his friends, true friends, have told me some of the stuff that they've done that cannot be repeated at this time. So that's my story about Jerry and his Operation Cold Feet. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you learned something. Take what you believe. Or anything down there? I don't know. But it's that DNA swab that you talked about, 11 months. And they said it's not like TV that they get a speck of blood. Hey, this is Joe the Ragman here. It's not that way. For one thing, it's not a serious problem. It's been 36 years, and they have to send it to Texas for sampling. So I'm still waiting after 11 months to get the DNA sample back. It was strange that after 36 years, he still did have some meat on his thigh.
Oh.
And that, you wouldn't have thought that.
No.
It was really very strange. I did not see the body out on the table, but they showed us pictures of the skull. And they did go to St. Pat's Hospital for a CAT scan, so it's been pretty well looked over. 99 point something. Dr. Kirkman, who's the state medical examiner. He's the guy. He's not just a person from some local hospital that's doing this stuff. This guy he said he's never seen it. He's never done an examination on somebody this old. They had 4 or 5 people from the university that were studying this. We couldn't have too many friends. There was 2 Hmong people that were here to witness the date, and myself, and she was just here, Myra Schultz, and the sheriff's department. people.
What would they match the DNA that they determined? Is it against your family?
Right out of my lip.
Thank you.
It's just like they show in the movies. You have a big long stick like that. See ya. Up against the wall. No.
What did they use on the the body? What did they use to compare?
I don't know.
You don't.
It was probably that chunk of meat that was
I
on
didn't
his
know if
thigh.
it would be bone or
Well,
that.
I don't know how they go
You
about
don't know
that,
how
but they
to do
were able to get a meat
yeah.
sample. They could have probably. He didn't explain where he got it, but he said he'd be able to.
That's what I would wonder.
I was surprised, and they were surprised also, because they said that they did not do a good job of embalming him there, and yet there he was. And when they
That's what they said in 1982 when they said, don't open it because he's in such bad shape. We just don't want you to have to witness anything like that.
but they had
But that wasn't the case.
the fire department there with their people that could check what kind of gases were, when they opened the casket. It was all done under, and they didn't seem to care about me because they were all dressed in these white suits, and I'm standing there like this. Oh, fat man will have to take care of himself. We're worried about us. So, but it was done very professionally, I felt, at the time.
Typical deal. So I didn't hear, why was there some confusion about who was in the grave? They never got a positive ID.
Yeah, we're going to start.
Okay, well, I'll just hang out.
Okay, that's fine, because she has most of the details there, and this was just a sideline.
Okay.
She's more involved in the.
For anybody interested in that connection between the smoke jumpers and the CIA, this is a very interesting book that runs through a couple of decades of stories. I have the order information here. It's only available if you write a check and send it in. It's not Amazon, so anybody who's interested, you can write that down.
How come I never got one? Never mind.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.